Hello, and welcome to the Power Within podcast. I'm your host, Laurie. Today, I'm thrilled to have Donny Mac back on the show. Donny is a talented singer and writer, and he is someone who devotes his time and energy to doing God's work and to helping other people on their journey. He is someone who isn't afraid to have conversations with everyone, and he treats everyone the same. I am so thrilled to have him back on. We had a wonderful conversation about the masks people wear, about being honest with yourself, about challenges and triumphs, and embracing this journey that we're on. He had triggered me, and that's how I wanted him to come back on and have a conversation because I learned a lot about myself through that experience. And I loved getting to understand his perspective and to look at things from, another lens. And it was a great conversation. I could have probably talked to Donnie for hours. I'm so thrilled to have him back on the podcast. I hope you guys really enjoy this. I hope that there's a lot that you can take from this conversation and just use it to integrate things into your own life or even start to question things and to grow and to give to others and to love and to really get to experience this beautiful journey that we're on. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Thank you so much for coming back on the show, Donnie. I appreciate you being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to have you come back on because when I saw you at event in September, you had triggered me a little bit, and I love triggers because they help me
Okay.
grow.
Okay.
And so I'm going to start off on the podcast with that. So one of the things I was kind of struggling a little bit, and you and I had talked, and um, you had said something along the lines of how well can we ever know anyone else? And
hmm
I thought about this a lot, and this kind of triggered me because I'm like, well, what do you mean, like, how well can we ever know? Like, how can you explain what you mean by that?
Well, I mean, you can, well, there's many layers to it, so I'm trying to play this well because once we go to certain layers of this topic, in my opinion, there are more questions come. So I'll try and play it on the surface here a little bit. Um, we can start with how well do we actually know ourselves? How many times we can go back to teenagers, and I know we're smarter now than we were then, we think, or we hope. But as a teenager, there was someone you had a crush on that you wish you could spend the rest of your life with. But then you look back now and you're like, whoo, I dodged a bullet. So we don't know ourselves as well as we think we do. And I think we can know ourselves to varying degrees, but I mean, if we're like that with us, like for instance, something as small as, oh, what I really want is ice cream or this food or that food, and then we eat it and we're like, oh, that didn't feel good. If we don't know ourselves well enough to know ahead of time that that isn't going to feel good, how are we ever actually supposed to be confident in knowing somebody else? Because they're going through the same thing.
Yes, and I think this is where this triggered me because I
Mm.
started to think about this more and I was like, okay, but we're constantly changing. So
Yes,
can we ever know ourselves
right.
really if we're changing that much? So I
Mm.
want to get your opinion on that portion of it, where we're constantly changing. Like, is there a point where we will ever really know ourselves enough to be able to differentiate?
I believe we can know ourselves better than we think we know ourselves now. And I believe the only real way to that is to really admit where we fall short. Because I think the lie we tell ourselves the most is, well, this is okay, and that's okay. And it's, you know what? I mean, he or she got upset at me for saying this, but I didn't mean it that way. But the reality is, if they got upset, there must be something, not always, but I would say in the common conversation, if someone got upset, like a friend of yours or someone you talk to often, by something you said, it's likely that you misread who they are and have lied to yourself about how you're coming across or how you mean to come across so that you can get away with the way you want to come across. Do you know what I mean? Like, so oftentimes we're like, well, I love them, so I want to let them know they're wrong about any particular topic. But then when we go to them, we're like, what are you doing? Well, that's not loving. It's not loving at all. But if we go, you know what? Can I ask you something? You're doing this. Is that the outcome? Is that the direction you want to go? Because I feel like I know you and I could be wrong, so please correct me, but I feel like you wouldn't want to go in that direction. Am I wrong? And now let them respond. Rather than the condemning version of, what are you doing? Like, we can convince ourselves, well, I was just asking, what are you doing? But the reality is you're condemning them with your tone.
Now, this is fascinating because I
Mm.
actually have been kind of toying with this a little bit lately because I was listening to another podcast and someone was talking about masks essentially. And I
Okay.
kind like the different masks that we wear for different people.
Yep.
And so this is something else that triggered me a little bit because I was like, well, wait a minute, because I know authenticity looks different for every single person because we're all unique and we all like different things. And so authenticity is always going to look different. But to me, integrity, I look at integrity and I feel like there is core things with integrity that are like the core values for it no matter what. So
Mm.
I'm like, if you are wearing different masks for different people. Now, understandably, if you're in like a marriage or your children or your parents, they're going to know little different parts of you and more intimate things about you. That's okay. But I feel like if we're putting on different masks for different people in our lives, can we ever truly be like authentically ourselves, and are we living in integrity because we're having to wear different masks for different people?
This
Now,
is a beautiful question. And I think it go needs to be brought back a little bit. And we need to ask first the question, why do we feel, because it's not them, why do we feel we need to wear a different mask for every person? And I already know some people, maybe you're listening right now and you're going, well, I have to because I'm a mom or a dad over here. I'm a brother or a sister over here. I'm a friend over here. These are my sports friends. These are my business friends. And these are my this. This is my that. Who told you they needed to be categorized? Who told you?
yes.
Why? Like, I can tell you, my life has been, well, it's been a roller coaster to put it lightly, but I have genuinely been the same with anybody I talk to. And that has caused some confusion with some of my friends. It has caused fear in other groups. And it is like fear and confusion seems to be the constant because if one group sees me with another group, I've had people come up and go, wait, you're exactly the same. I thought you were treating me special. And I'm like, well, I thought I was treating you special, but why can't I treat them special also? Like, I love and appreciate you as a friend. I love and appreciate them as a friend. And they're like, yeah, but the way you greeted and hugged that stranger, like, I've had friends go to me like, well, I feel like, well, that's how you greet and hug me. I'm like, well, yeah. Why do I have to change just because it's a different person? Like, I believe, and sorry, let me preface this. This is since I gave my life to Jesus Christ. Because before I gave my life to Jesus Christ, it was not like this at all. It was very compartmentalized. Your business, your fun, your friends, your family, you're like very different. And when they crossed over, I got confused, which told me I'm putting different sets of rules with different sets of people. And when I came to Christ and read the Bible and what it calls us to, I was like, oh, that's way easier. Like I just I just be me, no matter what it is. Love it. So now I do that. But I know we as people have this. It's a weird thing. I think I even had a conversation about this yesterday or the day before. We want so bad to be approved by everybody that we end up putting on what you call these masks or these characters that we play within different friend groups or stranger groups or business groups or whatever it is, and it's exhausting. And I think that women have a natural tendency to do this because of their beautiful nurturing gift. But I think it gets confused with because sometimes the best way to nurture somebody is to not give them what you think they need in that moment because they won't learn for themselves. And we know from I'll speak from my experience. When I tell somebody what the right thing to do is, or sorry, what I think the right thing to do is, they might listen, and they might actually try it, but it won't stick. But if they discover it themselves, it will last. So nurturing someone in a people pleasing sort of way doesn't actually help anybody. It doesn't help them and it doesn't help you.
And when you were saying, you said back when before you found Christ, you said
Mm.
it was exhausting. Do you feel
Oh, yeah.
like you could ever authentically, or were you ever authentically who you were because you were exhausted trying to be this for this person or that for that person? Do you think it was harder to be authentic or no?
I I would say in the moments I felt like I was authentic. What I was doing was withholding certain parts of me, which led people to see me as rude, obnoxious, selfish, and it was all true. I was very rude, obnoxious, selfish. When it came to business, I wanted what I wanted, and I was doing what I was doing to get you to do what I wanted you to do. And then when I came to Christ, I felt like my what I think God gifted me with the ability to read people, it became instead of a tool to get what I want, became this ability to help people see who they really are without me wanting anything in return, which is awesome because I get to just, and it's not like I'm trying to manipulate people to get something. I'm trying to ask questions to help them see a bigger picture. I can't pretend to say I know the whole picture, but I feel like in certain times I can see a bigger picture. And I think that happens with a lot of us. Like one you got two people talking, one person's going to see a bigger picture than the other. It's just inevitable. But the question is, are they going to deliver that information in a way that a person can receive and explore and discover? Or are they going to reprimand and condemn with that information?
I like that distinguishing the way that you explain that. One of the things that I found interesting, and this is also something that I think kind of goes along with this, because you kind of touched a little bit on females with the nurturing, and
Mm,
one of the things that I really appreciate about you and the interactions like that I've had with you, and when I met you in person, is you were having a discussion about body language, and I found this really it was very intimidating because I was closed off and you called me out on it. And I was like,
yeah.
well, no, 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 like because I was like that, and you were like, oh, well,
Yeah.
you're guarding. So I want to actually talk about this because I think it was really beautiful, and it actually
Mm,
changed the way that like when I came home. I started to realize even, just talking on the computer to people or the people in my life, like
yeah.
how I was projecting that image of myself with that body language. So you were
Yeah.
talking about the difference between male and female, like the way that they will use their body language. Can you share a little bit
Yeah.
about that? Because I think that's super beneficial for people.
Yeah, I would love to. I think I'll do the simple explanation. Look, at just an experiment for everybody who's watching. Next time you go out with a friend to chat, to connect, to what a business meeting, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're doing, where if you're sitting at a coffee shop, this is my favorite thing to do because it's just, sorry, I just enjoy this immensely. So you're sitting at a coffee shop or you're sitting at dinner even, and you've got, usually, if it's just coffee, you've got your cup in front of you. Wait for a moment in the conversation where a personal question gets asked to you or from you, and then gently and slowly move whatever cup is in front of you and whatever cup is in front of them out of the way and watch. Watch what the other person does and feel what happens to your body. And if there is no cup, you can find just watch the questions, listen to their tone, watch their skin tone change or not change with, and the speed of their voice change or not change with the type of question that's being presented, either to you or to them. And then if you catch yourself arms crossed, I know for me, some like I've got a bummed shoulder, so sometimes it's better for me to do this. But other times I know I have caught myself going, oh, my arms are crossed. It's probably my shoulder. But if I've said it's probably my shoulder, I know to dig deeper and go, is it actually my shoulder? Or am I protecting myself from something they're saying? And if I'm not sure, I do this. Wow, is that true? Which, if I'm doing this, I'm opening myself up. And as they're sharing whatever they're sharing that I might be uncomfortable with, and if I go physically open my body and invite them verbally, is that true? How often do you see me doing that? I can tell you, even right now, sitting here with you, I've got a little bit tingles going, wait, what's going to happen? And it's a beautiful thing to observe ourselves doing and feeling because I mean, you can you can change the trajectory of a conversation by simply moving a cup out of someone's way. Like for instance, as I'm talking to you, I'm seeing you've got a microphone. It's off to the side, but I can guarantee you the whole feel for you would change if that microphone was out of the shot. If it was lower, if it was higher, if it was on your left, if it was on your right, it changes how we feel. Because right now, you've been interviewing for a while, you're used to that mic being right there. But if that comfort of where you're used to the microphone being changes, so will your feelings.
That's really, really interesting. And I love that because as you were talking about the coffee cup, I was thinking about when I've gone and had coffee and like you do have like conversations that can be tougher. And even
Yeah.
as you were talking about it, I was holding my coffee cup
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, I'm like, what's he gonna say? And it's almost like a
Comfort.
safety net and a comfort.
Yes.
And I want to ask you, like, once you break that barrier, because I remember when you kind of had said to me, "Oh, you're crossing your arms," and you kind of like called me out on it, and I was like, "Oh," like, but it actually made me once you broke down that barrier,
Yeah.
it made me feel more comfortable with you because you called me out on something that I was doing. Do you find that like if you have that conversation with people that they're pretty open to kind of letting that barrier down more, or sometimes it can go in the opposite?
Well, that's a great question. It depends on who they are, what the issue is, how deep it goes, and more importantly, how I present it. So if I were to go, oh, you're coddling your cup. Well, that felt one way. But if I went, this is a serious conversation. I appreciate you sharing. Um, I noticed you're really holding on to that cup. What does that mean to you? Well, that's a different question. That's a different tone of voice. That's a different speed of speech. My body language, I relaxed my shoulders when I did it. You probably felt more comfortable. Because if I'm tense, we feed off each other. 90% of our communication is nonverbal. So if you take that to even with verbal, take the words out. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, feels a lot more different, a lot more different. I don't know what kind of English that is, but it feels different than very different. I don't even have to say words, and oh, I don't want to be part of that, or I do want to be part of that. And I think if we're in a sensitive situation and we're mindful of how we are presenting ourselves, then we can invite people to be what most people call vulnerable. And I will say, because it's a word that bugs me more than anything, is I don't feel vulnerable ever. Because if you look up the definition of vulnerable, it means to be put in a position to be hurt by somebody. My plan is not to hurt you, for one. For two, I You can only hurt me if I allow you to. It doesn't matter what you say to me. It doesn't matter. You could punch me in the face physically. Would that hurt physically? Yeah, absolutely. But if I'm thinking about you going, wow, I wonder where she's at, how much hurt she's feeling to actually punch me in the face. Is it me? Is it somebody else? Like, is she being mistreated and now therefore mistreating me because she doesn't know where to put it? If I'm thinking this way, I don't want to hit you back. I don't want to retaliate. I want to understand. So I think with the masks, we're so busy putting on these masks, but we're not taking the time to understand, is the mask needed? Is it helping? What is it actually doing? Because I think women have this beautiful gift of desiring and needing this connection more than men. Men need it too. Let's not pretend, guys. Come on now. But women have this natural gift of connection, and yet they're the ones that tend to be people pleasers more than men, and they wear the masks more than men, which means what? They're disconnected more because they're wearing more masks. They're people pleasing, which means they're not being honest about how they feel. Like the amount in my life, the amount of women that have said, oh, he's trying to change me. Oh, I changed for him. Oh, I changed for my kids. Oh, I changed for my work. It's like, but they hired you because they liked you. He dated you because he liked you. like, like, why did you change? Like, I don't know. I don't know the answer for each and every individual person. But I think if we actually do the exercise of watching how we talk, like I'm using my hands a lot today, which is fascinating, which means I believe for me, I want to express and I'm doing this a lot because I feel like I want to hug people. I have the heart right now for whoever's listening, like, please, if you just try to allow yourself to observe, that's a weird word, yourself and how you interact and how you speak and how you welcome or distance yourself from people, you'll get to know yourself enough to love yourself better because you'll know what you're actually loving. And then you can be yourself with others because you love you.
I love this. I got like little tingly stars
Yeah.
hearing you talk about this because I think one of the as a female, as like my own um the way that I used to be someone who's like, oh, like I get offended by everything. And I think once I learned that, you know, no one has the permission to offend you unless you give it to them. And when you approach the world like that, I
Mhm.
think it's really a wonderful gift that you give to yourself
And the
because
world.
then, yes, and you start to understand and look at things from a different perspective. And there's a lot of times too where I may, um, I've had people kind of be like, "Oh, well, you said this and this was hurt my feelings," and
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, why did it hurt your feelings though?" Like, I'm
Yeah.
just like, I'll use this example a lot. Like when you like, I'm a someone who has kind of really distanced myself a lot from social media. I
Yeah.
find for myself, I
Yeah.
know it triggered me a lot in a lot of different areas, and I think that there's a lot of unhealed people who are just using social media as weaponizing it.
Yeah.
And I think something that as I've been starting to approach it slowly again, I've started to look at it and go, okay, well, I'm if I don't say anything either though, and I'm trying to just people please, I'm not helping anyone on their journey either. And so, you know, one of the things that I was having a good conversation with a friend of mine recently was is we were talking about she was like, the younger kids and even the adults now, they use social media and they bully people and I a lot of times I found when people talk about me, I would kind of like curl up and be like, oh, I don't want them to, and I'm like, no, I don't care. You know what? I'm going to use myself as an example. So I just want to like let you guys be informed and know like, hey, you're online bullying me, but you have kids and you have grandkids and you don't like it when people do that to them. Have you been mindful to understand that those children are learning from you?
Mm.
and those grandkids are seeing you do that, and then they're turning around going, okay, well, I can do that too. And I think like when we all take that time to be like, okay, I'm not going to get offended. I'm going to take this time to learn about myself. I'm going to be mindful of what I'm doing. And also sometimes putting that I always have a tough time with this
Yeah.
vulnerability
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
You know what? I think there's a lot to be learned from this. And I
Oh yeah.
love this conversation and I love what you shared. So thank you so much for this.
Oh, my pleasure. It's one of my favorite conversations. Uh, the the actual psyche of self. That for some reason everybody's like, "Oh, know thyself." They'll have that on their fridge or on a mug. But do we actually take the time to observe ourselves? Or how about, never mind the time, how about for every time you lie to yourself, you look at yourself honestly? Do that, and I guarantee you that your life will change. There is no doubt in my mind. If every lie you tell yourself, you actually go, okay, well, I lied about wanting that or needing that or thinking like, for instance, anxiety comes from a lie to yourself that you need something so much, but you're not getting it. That's a lie. You don't need it. Like, let's define need. Need is can't live without. People live without things we claim we need all the time. And
Yep.
we can always say, well, they're not me. They haven't been through what I've been through. And you know what? You're right. They haven't, but they still live without it, which means it's not a need. What a need is food, water, air, sleep, exercise, love, connection, these things. It's not car, better car, faster car, boat, house, like whatever, steak, 5 meals a day. I don't know, whatever your thing is, but this relationship, that relationship, we're a funny, we are such a funny creature. I find us as people fascinating. And then my second, of course, is the male female interaction because I think it's God's great humor because we are so similar and so different. And what I love is that God created marriage because it's not good for man to be alone. It's not good for woman to be alone. We need the polar opposite of what we are. Even though we can look and act and talk very similar, we're very, very different. So fun.
Okay, so I want to ask you about this though, because
Yeah.
I've started to notice in especially with as you become more self-aware and mindful and understanding and you kind of like learn the things that you do want, you don't want, and what you will tolerate, what you won't tolerate too.
Mm-hmm.
I find that I'll say for myself, like my standards are very, very high for that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think in the world it's hard because you have a lot of people now who are like, I would rather be alone
Mm-hmm.
than to be with someone who's not going to fulfill me or that
Mm-hmm.
I'm settling for.
Right.
And I think that this is an important thing to talk about too, though, with that balance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, can you talk a little bit to that?
Oh, of course. My favorite thing that you just said is the most common thing people think of with relationships. I want them to fulfill me. Me, bookshelved. I want them to fulfill me. You've literally bookshelved the whole conversation about you. A relationship is not about you. If you, if we, if we are honest and we look at all the relationships that we're like, wow, they really seem to have it together. Usually, if they're not lying and you find that out later, it's because they're serving each other. It's a battle of who can outserve the other person. And I'm not talking about, oh, you want pizza, let's go for pizza. No, no, no. You want Italian, let's go for Italian, which I guess is the same thing. But but actually pizza was invented by the Chinese, but whatever, that's a different thing. But it's not that. It's I would like to go out. I'm tired. But you know what? I know that once I get out, because I'm spending time with you, it'll be fun. It'll be enjoyable. Let's go. And then but the reality is, if they say yes, and if they want to outdo you, they're going to go, but you know what? Tomorrow, let's do what you want to do. It's that I want to serve you. I want to serve you. I want you to be happy. I want you to be happy. And sometimes you got to be careful because a people pleaser will say, well, I'm only happy when you're happy, which is not true. It's a lie we're telling ourselves. Because, I mean, I've been in relationships before where I'm like, just because they're happy, that doesn't mean I'm happy. Let's be honest. And
Well, I think
happiness is not necessarily something to attain either, but go ahead.
I was just going to add into that too, though. I think something that's very important in life is to realize that so many people are looking for other people to make them happy.
Yeah.
And happiness is an inside job, and you're not going to be happy with anybody else if you're not happy with yourself, no matter how wonderful that person is. And
Well,
so I
let's
think
just
that's
think about the
important.
stress. Let's just think about the facts, the realities. If I'm not happy and I come to hang out with you, hoping you're going to make me happy, how do I know that you're going to make me happy if I don't know how to make me happy? I don't. It's back to the beginning of our conversation. If we don't look at the truth of who we are, stop lying to ourselves, we don't know who we are. So how can we ever possibly know that that person or that thing is going to make us happy? Because it's not. It's just not. I'll tell you straight up, whether you believe in God or not, the Bible says to love others as you would love yourself, to count others as more significant than yourself. Why? That's how we're made. Think about when you're happiest. It's when you're helping someone, when you feel helpful. It's not when they give you a, well, not that back massages are bad, but when they give you a back massage every time you want it. I love a massage, but um, it's not those things. As a matter of fact, if I may be so bold, as a man talking to men, common gift for their significant other is a day in the spa. And my brain always goes, you're missing it. She wants to be with you. She doesn't want you to pay for her to go away. She wants to spend it with you, you dummy. Like, I mean, not that giving her a day in the spa is a bad thing because women like to be pampered, but they want to be pampered by you. Like,
Yep.
and it's not the pampering, it's you. It's the attention, the connection that they will feel. It's like my one of my favorite images to talk about for men and women is man and woman go out on a date. They go to a restaurant. What does the woman notice? Without even thinking, temperature, color, mood, lighting, where the feel of the whole restaurant. The man goes, closest seat, so I can see the exit, and we can order. That's what a man's doing. They sit down. He says, or no, they look, so yeah, they sit down. He picks up the menu, which is what? Which from the conversation we had, blocking her. It's in front of his face. She can't see him. She can't connect. So what does she say? What are you having? And he goes, oh man, I don't know. I'm trying to solve this problem and now I got to solve her problem. And she's going, no, I want to connect with you. What she should have said, or I don't like the word should, what she could have said is gently grabbing his hand that's on the menu, go, hey, can I just see your face? I like you and I want to see you. But she's afraid to be vulnerable. She wants to keep it simple. She wants him to want to see her face, but he's not thinking that. He's on a mission trying to figure out what he can order so he can eat and get on with it. And then so he goes, I don't know. What are you having? And then she goes, well, I don't know. And she'll say multiple different things, trying to get him to lower the menu, trying to get him to pay attention to her, not the menu. But in all that, sorry, I kind of lost, I went off track, I think, a little bit. I love it because it's like if she's being honest with who she is, she's not likely to ask what he's eating because she knows she doesn't care what he's eating. Not at all. She doesn't care until he orders it. Then she wants some, but that's it. Like that's so he has to order a little bit extra because if he really wants his, he's gonna lose it. But even that is her wanting to share. It's a connecting thing that a woman wants. And if a man actually cares about her, he knows she doesn't care what he's eating. She cares about him. And if she's asking these questions, it means he's not paying attention. And she's trying to guide him to pay attention. It's a funny world. It's a funny, what is it, dichotomy? Is that the word I'm looking for? I don't know.
Why do you think, though, that men are more disconnected than women?
I think that men, we're just made different, I think is the only real solid answer. We were designed to provide. Not that women can't provide, don't get me wrong. It's clearly like if I'd be a fool to say that women can't provide because there's a lot of women out there that are kicking butt and not taking names. They're just like, I'm gonna run this company. I'm gonna take over. They're amazing. And I think that's a beautiful thing. But I think that men are just designed to we think problem solving. We think like, and it's not necessarily true, and it's varying degrees with every guy. So chill out if you're a guy watching this. Um, but men see things as problems to be solved for some reason. And can we get over that? Yes. Does it take time? Oh yeah. It takes a lot of time. So women be patient with us. But on the flip side, women are feeling everything, which can slow down progress, if you will, which is debatable because I think feeling your way through can actually speed up progress if you've got the efficiency of the brain of a man and the beauty of the nurturing connectivity of a woman, and they if they can find a way to communicate together, oh, the rare times that you see that, it's amazing. Like my parents had that, and to watch them make decisions together was awesome. It was so fast. It was like, wow, no arguing, just doing. I was like, wow.
I love that because I think sometimes I've had some conversations with my friends who like the dynamics have changed so much in the world where you were just talking about like
Hmm.
women are, out, trying to run the world too. But I think that also there's a beauty in women being, stay-at-home moms and teaching the kids and cooking and
Oh
cleaning.
yeah, they're
And
good at it.
yeah, and it's sometimes it's looked at as a negative, like, oh, you just want us to be, barefoot and pregnant or whatever.
Oh,
But I think there's that beauty and it also adds to that balance. And I think that the world that we live in now with that kind of everything's material, everything's money, we gotta go, 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 we gotta give,
yeah,
give, give, get, I think it's taken out. And I think that that also has contributed to this kind of imbalance that we see in the world now today.
yeah. Well, I like that you said it. The world has changed. I don't think it has. Esther, Bathsheba, Leah, like Sarah, they were monsters at taking things over. Like Esther was queen. I don't know what, you don't get much better than that. I mean, even Queen Elizabeth, who just passed away, it was a year or two ago, like she ran England for longer than anybody in history. Like, so it's not now, it's always been. Women
Mhm.
have always been valuable. It's just the culture of an area and the media of its time, whatever that may be, could have been manipulated. But I think anyone who wants to be heard can be. It's just, are you willing to take the risk? Because now we're getting into a conversation of um, what is the word? Confrontation adverse people, people
Mhm.
that want to, but they don't want the confrontation. But I hate to tell you, it comes with the territory. Like
Yeah.
you want to be noticed, there's gonna be confrontation. Take any band you've ever liked. Everybody loved them when they were nobody. As soon as they started to become somebody, some people started to hate them. I have friends that were in a band that are the world's, they are literally the world's most known for being hated band on the planet. And they are one of the best and biggest bands on the planet at the same time. So it's like, it tells you that alone. Like Nickelback, I'll just say, people's strange relationship with the band Nickelback tells you we don't know what we like straight up. Because I have watched people go, oh, I hate Nickelback. And then they go and pay $200 for a ticket. I'm like, you don't hate them. You
Nickelback is great.
spent $200 hating them. You gave it to them. You're welcome. It makes no
Yeah.
sense. Um, but yeah, we're a funny world. Like we're always, here's the other thing, like if we stop putting so much energy to go, woe is me. Oh, black people don't have the same equality. Chinese people don't have equality. Women don't have equality. White men have this privilege. I'm like, I can tell you right now, I have tried my butt off most of my life. I haven't gotten anywhere. Not like my friends in Nickelback, Default, Soul Decision, Theory of Dead. Pick a band. My actor friends, Graham, Jesse, like they're all doing great. Have I got to that level? No. Is it why? Because I have white privilege? I can tell you no. Denzel Washington has done a heck of a lot better than I have. Don't get me wrong, he's a phenomenal actor and deserves every bit of it. But Morgan Freeman, like there's a lot. Actually, Morgan Freeman talks about this very well. He goes, privileged? I'm a black man making millions of dollars to play. He's like, if you want it, go get it. I was like, wow, like that's a
I
beautiful thing to say.
I think it might be Morgan Freeman who had said the only reason that there continues to be these talks is because people keep talking about it.
Yes, the
And
racist thing. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that that's important. Like when you were just talking about like privilege and different things, I think everyone works to different degrees, and I do believe that luck is also a you can hit luck at the perfect time,
Right
and
place, right time.
yeah, so I think that that plays a lot of into that.
Sure.
Sure, there's manifestations, and but I think when you look at it, it's there's a whole bunch of combinations that have to work. But one thing that I love about you is you have like a serving and supporting heart. And I
Yeah.
I, I want to talk about this because I think that when you talk about like, and this isn't saying anything to anybody else, like I love, actors, all that, that's wonderful. But you really serve and support like the communities you help people. And I want to talk about, because I know you worked on your bus and you have your mobile ministry that you do and you're
Yeah.
going and you're helping people. So
Yeah.
I want to talk about like what what was it about that you wanted to make that like a mission for you to be like, okay, I want to get this bus going. I want to get it. I want to go out and help people.
Mm,
Like I know you've had that drive to do
mm,
that for a long time, but what about like what made you want to get the bus and be like, okay, I want to go on the road and do this?
mm. That's a good question. First of all, I want to address your wording, want. What made me want to? If I'm being completely honest, I didn't necessarily want to. What I wanted to do was hear God. If I want to know who God is, he said, seek my face and you'll find it. And so I'm like, okay, I am constantly trying to find God, trying to seek his face, his will. And I was pursuing music, film, just did an album. Like, yeah, okay, this is happening. I'm going to Nashville and things are great music wise. But when I got here and the album finished, I felt this heavy wah wah. Was I excited about the album? Oh yeah. I thought Jim was amazing. Everybody that played on it was like, it sounds cool. I'm very excited about it. But then I was like, that's it. I'm like, okay. And then as I started to do marketing and looking at marketing, I was like, this is very me, me, me. And I'm like, I don't like that doesn't feel right. That's not me putting other people before me. That's not me counting others as more significant. And then through a very long, strange series of events, the bus became available. I actually got some work doing renovations for a friend of mine. She owns a film studio. So I started renovating for her some studio stuff. And then I felt like I was going to start buying things. I was living at my friend's house in his spare bedroom. And he was so kind. He blessed me with not letting me pay rent. So I'm like, okay. And even when I was working, he wouldn't let me pay rent. So I was like, okay, Lord, what's the money for? And I felt like God, I didn't hear anything. So for me, that meant put the money in the bank, don't touch it until he tells you. So I did. And then a bus, I felt like God was showing me, go look at RVs. I've wanted one since I was a teenager, to be honest. And I was like, okay, I've started looking at RVs, 35,000, 40,000 for used, like beat up. Everything had leaks in it. And I was like, okay, just kept researching. And I'm like, okay, buses are better if you get the fiberglass body one because it's less likely to leak, although mine's leaking right now. Shh. Um, and then, but everything was like 35, $40,000. I was like, I don't have it. And I felt like God say, if you don't have the cash, you're not buying it. So I'm like, okay. And I finally gave up. And then one morning I opened my laptop and it still had, I think it was still open to the marketplace, the Facebook marketplace, and there was a bus there. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Well, I'll just click on it. Clicked on it. They wanted $10,000 Canadian for this bus, which was $30,000, 35,000 or $25,000 less than everybody else was asking for buses with way more mileage. So I was like, this has got to be it's going to be one of those scams. But I felt like, oh, I'll message them. Hey, is this real? And the guy responds, yes, but there's three people ahead of you. And I just felt like God told me, well, tell him you're interested. So I was like, okay. I was like, hey, well, that's cool. I'm interested. I'd love to take a look at it. I can come out today, and it was an hour and a bit away. But if you got those other people, let me know when they've looked at it, and I'd be happy to come take a look. And he responds like an hour later. He's like, I get a good vibe from you. Why don't you come out today? So I'm like, okay. I went out there to look at the bus. I brought my brother and my brother-in-law because they're both good at mechanics and stuff. I'm like, I mean, I know some stuff, but my brother's like really smart with vehicles. They look it over like, I don't see a problem. But the guy that was selling it was like, okay, don't forget this. There's a dent here. There's a bump here. There's a scratch there. There's this there. I'm like, okay. I'm like, you know what? I'll take it. And he's like, no, no, no. You have to drive it first. I was like, no, I'll take it. He's like, nope, not letting you take it until you drive it. So I drove it. And I'm like, man, this thing's great. And it had what was equivalent to 50,000 original miles for $10,000. Unheard of. Like, by the way, that should be $40,000 all day long. So I eventually bought it. And then it was like, because I had $10,000 in the bank because I saved it up from the whole year of working. So I'm like, okay, now what do I do? And then, long story short, like, I wanted to give my vehicle to somebody in Nashville because that's just something I felt like God wanted me to do. And then someone heard about me, flew me out to manage their property. They had 350 acres they wanted me to manage and built a stage on so they could have concerts. And I'm like, sure. And they were going to pay me and they were going to get my work visa and all that. So it was done. Long story shorter, the day I was supposed to drive to Tennessee to give the car and the land. They called me about the land and said, change of plans. We're not doing it. So now I don't have a visa. I don't have a job. I don't have a place to go. I don't have like nothing. I was like, so I was sad, to be honest. I was like, Lord, I don't understand. Like, I felt like I stepped in for real and blah, blah, blah. And then I met my brother Dave, who was helping me do the renovations on the bus. And he looked at me, and he's not a follower of Christ. And he looked at me and he goes, when did the mission change? I was like, that's not something he would say, mission? Like what? He's like, well, I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you were going to Nashville to give the vehicle to somebody. I'm like, yeah. He's like, what changed? And I walked away just dumbfounded. I'm like, oh yeah, that's interesting. So he's like, I'll drive you. I'll drive the car. You drive the bus. We'll go up. I was like, okay. And then I started doing live videos on the road, and people started privately messaging me that they would love to have me perform a concert at their house. So we started doing concerts at the house because my brother's also a musician. And then people started talking about home renos. Because some of these people were elderly, some were disabled, and I was like, oh, well, I can do that. I can change this. I can fix that. I can do that. And then it just was put on my heart, like it was almost like God went and punched me in the chest and went, "That's what you're gonna do." So I was like, "For free?" And God's like, yeah, for free. Because you're not allowed to work in the States. You don't have a visa, remember? I was like, okay, all right, well, I don't have any tools. So started doing things and I didn't have tools. And then one person needed some help that I was like, I definitely need tools. And I felt like God said, put it on your credit card. So I was like, oh, I don't like doing things on my credit card. So I started buying tools on my credit card, and then people started asking if they could help out. And so some people started donating, which is amazing because that's allowed me to buy tools. And it's also allowed me to go to people that don't have the funds, don't have the ability, and they're like, oh, I need this done. But I would love you, like, my favorite is I get messaged and people say, oh, I'd love to have you fix this, but I can't afford it and I can't do this and I don't have the, because my deal is you buy the materials, I'll do the work. But it started to grow into a place where people are like, I can't afford the materials. And then, but then someone would donate a couple $100. And I'm like, well, I can buy the materials for you. So I'm like, okay. So it just started to grow like that. Now I'm so backlogged. Like I'm just like, okay, I needed to take a break because I got burnt out because I felt like I kept saying yes to everybody. And I felt like God's like, you need to stop, just breathe a little bit. You can't fix the entire United States and Canada. It's not going to happen. I didn't ask you to do that. I was like, oh, okay. So I've been chilling out a little bit, doing bits and pieces here and there now.
That's amazing. I love that. And I think I remember seeing when you were posting and you've shown like a lot of the renos, and I'm like, that's like amazing that someone would do that, because a lot of people, I'll say this, like in the US, a lot of people were like, no, I'm not. Someone was actually just talking about this recently. I saw on one of our local things, and the girl was stuck,
Hmm.
and she was like, this guy drove up with a snowplow, and he told me I'll plow you up for $20, and she's like, I had no money, so he's like, okay, bye, and he drove away.
Oh,
And so I was like, I love hearing when people will be like, you know what? I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna
yeah.
do that because
Oh, let's be honest, $20. You drove away for $20? Dude, the feeling of helping someone is worth way more than $20. If he'd have just, or she had have just gone and done the plowing, they would have driven away and been like, oh, that was amazing. I want to do that again. Like serving people, we were built for it.
well, I think too, I think when you also experience like I'll share this. I went a couple years ago to Vancouver Island. I
Yeah.
had saved for forever and I was like, I'm gonna hike, and I decided to go in February, and there
Yeah.
was they got a lot of snow, so it extended my trip a little bit. But I really wanted to go down to I think it was in like Parksville. There was like an extension. You got to kind of go down this hill area. I think you've been around there. There was like an extension bridge, and it's near the shooting
Oh,
range and stuff.
yes, yes, yes.
So going down the hill, so it was a really snowy day, and I'm like, well, I want to go, and I don't care. I want to, I drove the car down. Well, I couldn't get back up.
Mm,
And so I was crying because I'm like, I'm sitting down at the bottom and I'm like, I can't get this car up. And it started to like veer, kind of go over the hill. And I'm like, I called the company. They're like, and then I was calling all the tow places, and they're like, we don't have a tow truck who can come out there. Like, there's one guy on the island and he's like way gone.
yeah.
So I sat there crying. And I remember this guy came up with his wife, and um, he's like, what's wrong, sweetheart? And I was like, I can't get my car up. And I'm like, every time I've tried to, I'm just about going over like the hill area and it's gonna roll the car. And so he was like, well, let me use my it's the equivalent of AAA. I don't know what it is there, but he was like, let
EPA.
me call them and see if they'll come out for me. And then he sat with me for a while, and he's like, then they called him back and they're like, we can't come out. There's no one to come out. And so I'm like, it's okay. And he's like, no, if my daughter was stuck somewhere and she needed help, I would hate to know that people would walk away and leave her. He's like, then there was another guy in a truck. So the guy's like, you get in my truck, come up here. And the guy with his wife was like, let me try. I'm going to try and get your car. I sat up at the top and crying in the truck for 5 minutes at the top with the other guy. And he's like, don't worry. He's like, we'll get you out of here. And the guy came up with my car. He got it up. And
Nice.
he's like, I just had to maneuver, put it lower gears, do this. And I was like, can I pay you? Because I know you were going to do. No, no, no. He's like, just pass along to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's something I've never forgotten. And I think when you experience too, like times where you were in need and someone did that for you, I think it makes you much more compassionate to want to spread that to other people and pass that along.
Yeah.
And so I love the mission that you're on, and I love what you're doing. Um, there is something that I do want to ask you, and this is something I've been kind of stewing on. So I'm like, and we've kind of talked a little bit about this. So I was like, two of the questions that I want to ask. My guest this season on the podcast is, do you believe in fate or do you think everything is predestined? And
Well,
there
the
was another
Bible
part to it.
says that things are predestined. Um, and the Bible also talks about if you have faith of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain, which means if you have faith, you can change things. And the Bible also says that if you ask anything in God's will and through Christ, he will give it to you. But I think there's a trick to that, not a trick, but there's a part of that scripture that people forget. It's like it's got to be in line with God's will. It can't be like, I want to murder 8,000 people now. Like it's not going to happen. I mean, it could happen, I suppose, but it wouldn't be from your prayer. Um, I believe the Bible also talks a lot about how if you work hard, you'll be rewarded for your hard work. Does that mean you're going to be a millionaire? Not necessarily. A reward isn't always what we think it is. So, do I believe in predestination or do I believe in fate? I think the answer is yes. It's kind of like, I mean, fate, we'd have to define fate. I believe in working hard and I believe in God's predestined. Am I going to be as good as Michael Jordan in the NBA? No. Why? I wasn't made that way. So I was predestined to not be Michael Jordan. Like, and people can argue, well, he was gifted with talent. You can argue that. But that man practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and believed, which means he had faith that he could, and he did. He moved mountains with skills because he believed he could. I do not have the faith that I will become an NBA player. Not to mention, I'm only 5'10", and I will look very tiny on that court with all those big dudes. And I'm a terrible shot. But so I believe there's the predestination is there. Like we're because the Bible says that we were fearfully and wonderfully made. God knit us together in our mother's wombs, which means we were made for a purpose. And I think part of what frustrates people is we see a Michael Jordan and we're like, I want to be that because we see the adoration, we see the money, we see the Nike shoes, which is an insane thing. Like how that's become so big is beyond me. He doesn't even play anymore, and Nike Air Jordans are so expensive. But we want to be what another person was created to be, which means we're putting on too many masks instead of looking at what we were actually made to be. And if we actually find that, if we're honest with ourselves, we stop wearing the masks, we stop lying to ourselves, we will find what that is and we will thrive. What that thriving looks like, again, I don't know. Are you going to make a $3 billion Nike deal? I doubt it. But but maybe you'll thrive by loving people. Like, I mean, it's a funny thing because I always thought I wanted to be a rock star. But I remember very distinctly watching my friends in a band, and we would compete with who sold the more tickets and who sold most CDs, who sold the most T-shirts. And I remember I opened for them that night, and I remember looking at them going, they want to be up there. I don't. I don't really. I like performing, but not like they did. So I'm like, okay, I got to be honest with myself. I love music. I love writing. I love creating, but I might not be made for this like they are. So I think, again, it ties into the whole lying to ourselves and trying to be or wanting to be something we think somebody else is. Because what they are, like, I've been around a lot of celebrities, and I can tell you what people think they are. Actually, I had a conversation with my mom this morning. She's like, "Oh, so and so is doing so great. They must have they bought a house with all their millions yet?" And I'm like, "Uh, it's not like that. Like they're not worth that money. Like it looks like they would be based on the shows or whatever they're doing. I'm like, but they're not. That is not the reality of this life. It's until you become a Michael Jordan, a Brad Pitt, or whatever, Jennifer Aniston, or whoever it is. But there's only one Brad Pitt. There's only one Jennifer Aniston. There's only one Michael Jordan. There's only one Wayne Gretzky, and it's. I think. We need to stop. Hmm, I don't want to say need. I believe it would be advantageous for everyone if we, instead of spending our time wanting to be what somebody else is or what we think somebody else is, we take the time to look at what we are and find out that path and then enjoy that. Because, I mean, like you were saying about the whole social media, all that does is make you want to be or be like somebody you're not.
Yeah,
And let's be real, there's not many people posting the truth on there.
no. So social media is very, and this is what I've come to see because I could even like look at myself and be like, I can see the times where really wanted people's attention or I wanted likes and I felt like that would
Yep.
validate me.
Yep.
And you don't see what I think is like a struggle is so many people look at social media as like, like, oh, I want to adore this celebrity. I want to be liked by this person. It doesn't really matter. Like they're showing you what they want you to see. You're not seeing people's struggles. There's very few people who are going to really get on and use social media in an honest way
Yep.
and say, "Hey, look, this is a struggle in my life. This is hard," because everyone wants a collect it's everyone wants to see like a collection, but then that's what causes people to feel so much unhappiness because they see, oh well, this person, and I had this myself, like I did a podcast episode talking about this because people were like, oh, must be nice, you have a you say you have a hard time, but sometimes, but oh, you went on a trip, and I'm like, hold on a minute. Yes,
Mhm.
I shared with on my social media because I wanted to share with my friends and family because I only really follow people that I know or
Yeah.
that I'm friends with. So I wanted to share something that was exciting for me. But you look at that and you got angry and you projected this like really like harsh thing on me. But what you don't see is that I worked so many extra hours to be able to afford to go on that trip, and that I went to the grocery stores and got my food instead of ate out all the time, that I spent most of my time hiking, which was free.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that there's this projection that people look and go, oh, well, this person's on a trip and that person's there. But you don't see like how people are. Like I don't share a lot of my struggles. In fact, I've even stopped sharing like a lot of like when I do things because I'm like I don't want to share that fake image of myself
Yeah.
and let people think that this is how it is because there's a lot of times that I do struggle and there's a lot of times that things work out great for me and
Yeah.
there's that balance. But I think um with the social media aspect of that is that a lot of times we are using social media to seek outside of ourselves to find validation, and it
Yes.
doesn't matter how much validation you get unless you learn to love yourself and love who you are. You're never going to be satisfied at all.
Never. That's true. It's so true. We are a funny creature. We want
Now,
everybody wants to be heard and wants to be loved, but nobody will let you know who they are completely, and nobody will speak the truth of what they're feeling. So how can you be loved and heard if you won't be honest? The love you're getting is for the person you're pretending to be, not the person you actually are.
yep.
But for some reason, we lie to ourselves again and say it's enough, but it's not. Because if it was, we wouldn't be chasing likes. What we want to be chasing is love, real love, true love, love from a friend, love from a loved one that actually sees you for who you are and says, I love you. I love you anyway. Which is why Jesus is so hard for people to grasp. He knows you and he loves you anyway.
Hmm.
He knows the grossest part of you and goes, you know what? I'm going to die for you.
It's that total acceptance.
Yeah. And
Yes.
we are like, no, no, we're so busy lying to ourselves about who we really are that we're like, I don't need you. It's like, that just proves you need him more than you could possibly imagine. Like, I need him. I can tell you that. I'm a mess.
Well,
Yeah.
I want to ask you a
Yeah.
question. So this is the other part of the question that I
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to ask about free will.
Yeah.
Okay. So I understand that we all have free will to make decisions to do whatever. We can decide what we want to do. We can decide if we want to listen. But when you are following that guidance that you feel,
Yeah.
whether I know for you it's Jesus, other
Mhm.
people it may be universe, however you see that,
Mhm.
do you think that there is truly free will on that path if you're going to follow Jesus, the universe, and you because if you go against how you feel, are you that to me is more the free will to step away. But do you feel that there is free will in following Jesus?
First of all, let me tell you, I love that question because when I came to Jesus, I did not go willingly. I can tell you that straight up. I did not want to believe in Jesus. I did not want to believe in God. I did not want to believe in the Holy Spirit. Like I actually saw someone posted on one of my Instagram posts and they're like, "Oh, I see it's thank you for sharing. I know this is what you've believed since you were a kid." And I'm like, "Nope." Definitely not what I believed. I didn't give my life to Christ until I was 38. So it's like, and I did not, I'm telling you, I so much did not want to that I quit. I owned five companies at the time, four or five companies, I forget. I had a handful of personal assistants. I had houses. I was like doing well, so to speak. And I left everything within a week. I shut it all down and spent 8 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week for a year to prove he didn't exist. And you, hopefully, my life shows that I've clearly not been able to prove he did not exist because now I've given my life to him because it's like, what? So that being said, I believe free will is God is loves us so much that he will not force us to love him. But he loves us so much that he will love us regardless. But he wants us to love him so that we can be with him. And it is my understanding. I'm not sure if many other people that claim to follow Christ would say the same thing, but I believe heaven is eternity with God. And the descriptions of, I'm hoping, because the descriptions of gold streets and crystal buildings, I'm like, that sounds terrible. It just sounds ugly to me. But it may just, I think it's just a description of it's so beautiful with him because he is love. And eternity with love looks very different than eternity without love, which is what I believe hell is. Because if God is love and we have uh, free will to choose not to be with him for eternity, then that's what hell would be. And the description is like an unquenchable fire and a thirst that cannot be quenched. So it's like God's like, I love you. Come to me, but I'm not going to force you. And I'm gonna make it so easy you can't earn it. I sent Jesus, he earned it for you. Just believe in Jesus and follow me. That's what Jesus always said. Follow me. And it's like, but so, but I have to be honest and say, I did not want to come to Christ. I did not. I absolutely, and I will say it again just to show the depravity of where I was and where, so anyone out there that believes I have followed Christ my whole life and that was my childhood, it is not. I had a t-shirt that my best friend at the time made me, and it said what I used to say all the time, and it was, Jesus is dead, get over it. And I used to wear that shirt up until I was 38 years old. And I don't say I came to Jesus. I say God punched me in the face because it was I got knocked on the floor. I didn't understand what was going on. It was a literal wrestling match. I was literally 3 in the morning standing up, F this, F you, I don't believe in you, F and boom. Felt like I got pushed on the ground. Next thing I know, I'm on my knees, my hands are raised, and I'm praying and I don't know what I'm saying, standing up, and I'm like, no way, I don't want to believe in you. And I'm in an empty house yelling at nobody. Well, at least that's what I felt at the time. Now I know it was yelling at God while claiming I didn't believe in him, which is a very odd oxymoron to believe in someone that you're yelling, or to not believe in someone that you're yelling at. made me feel a little crazy. Um, but God was like, so that's where I think the predestination comes in. And I'll be honest, I have a hard time accepting that he would predestine me because my heart is for people like my family members, my ex, like, and I'm like, well, why not them? Like, my ex was raised Christian elementary, middle, high school, university. Why not her? I mean, I don't know where she's at now. I haven't seen her in years, but and I'm like, if I'm totally honest, I don't like that. I don't like that it was me and not them yet, or maybe not them at all. But then it's not my choice, it's their choice. Did God punch me in the face? Yeah, repeatedly that night. But I still got the choice to say, okay, you're real. What does that mean? What do I do? Everything I own means nothing if you're real, which is what I didn't want. I wanted everything I worked for and everything I owned to mean something. I wanted my life to mean something, and it didn't in my mind if he existed. But the truth is, it actually is real, and it does have a purpose that is way bigger than I thought because he's real. So, yes, I do believe in free will. Yes, I do believe in predestination. How it all works, I have no idea, but that's why I pray for people as much as I can because what I found out over the first few years when I did first give in and give my life to Christ was that there had been people praying for me for years, and I had no idea. Like I had one friend, she's like, "I've been praying for you for 4 years." I was like, "Wait, what? Why didn't you ever tell me anything?" And she's like, "Are you kidding me? You? Nobody could approach you." I was like, "Oh, that's not false, but." Yeah, so I guess both again, it's an interesting thing.
So do you notice like, okay, so when you resist it though, and when you follow that path, when you follow Jesus' path, like you're following the commandments, you're following all,
Yeah.
everything written out. Do you feel different when you're on that path versus resistant? And I think you
Oh
kind of said
yeah.
yes. So
Yeah.
is it more of like a joyous one to stay that way? And would you want to change that?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, I'll give you the analogy I used to say for years when I first came to Christ, because I used to think that I always heard the phrase, oh, when there's a door open, you walk through it. When there's a window open, or when he closes a door, he opens a window. I'm like, oh, that's all very pretty. Let's try that in real time. So I used to think when a door was, I would think I saw a door open and I would run at it like a bull. I'm like, yeah, I want to see what God's on the other side. And I used to smash my face and smash my face and smash my face. And God's just going, that's not an open door. That's a brick wall. Stop doing that. You're going to hurt yourself. And I kept getting hurt and it always was hard and it was always a struggle. And I'm like, hang on, wait, God, I thought that door was open. He's like, who said it was open? I never heard his voice. I need to be clear about that. It's always been this for me. When I believe it's God, I feel this warm hand on my chest, and it's like, think about it differently. What if this? How about that? And so I started looking at it, going, why is it whenever I think it's him, it hurts? It can't be him because he said he's not the God of chaos. He said, "Take my yoke, for my yoke, the my burden is light, and my burden is light. Yeah, and it's easy and light when you're in line with Him." And I was like, "Well, this is not what I'm feeling. I'm feeling stressed and pain and suffering, and this sucks." And so I had to take the other scripture to heart and go, "Be still and know that I'm God." And I think that has to happen first. No matter what I'm going to do or think I'm going to do, I need to be still first and just knowing that He is God. He's in control. He's created everything. I'm a blip on the history of the world. Like literally, my life's gone like that. So it's like, am I that am I making myself that important when I'm really not? But I also am because I'm important enough for God to go, Jesus is going to die for you, which is insane. I still can't get over that. But so I try to be still, and then I try because I'm like very what is it, zealous? I'm like, yeah, let's get in there. It's something fun. Um, and I try to take steps towards something, but observing. Am I anxious? Is it anxious or nervous? Because they can seem the same, but they're very different. Am I am I afraid, like actual afraid, or am I just afraid what people might think? Because that's very different. Because Jesus said, "Be not afraid. I've overcome the world." But we have a fear of people sometimes. And it's like, well, what are people going to think if I do this home renovation? I tell you, I have people as early as yesterday that I met with going, "Why are you doing that? You're broke. You need money. You should charge people." I'm like, "Well, I will if God tells me to." But currently, he's not telling me to. So I can't because or sorry, I can because I have free will, but I won't because I know through my life experience of smashing my face against brick walls and then slowly finding out that's not a wall or that's not a door, that's a wall, and then moving along the wall and going, oh, there's a door. Nope, that's locked. Okay, yeah, and then gently trying to be still. I know that if God is telling me to do it for free, and as soon as I stop doing it for free, it's going to get hard again. And you know what? It's not worth it to me. I'm I don't care. I do not care about working in the way that the world does. 9 to 5, go home, fix things, communicate with certain people. No, God wants me to go right now and fix your house. I'm going, period. That's it. I don't even know where you live, but I'll go. It's like, I know there's actually there is someone that made a request in New England. And I'm like, for some reason, that's still on my heart. And I'm like, I'm going to New England at some point.
Oh, when you come up to the New England area, come on up. I'm up here.
Yeah. Yeah, you're in Boston or something area.
About 40 minutes from Boston. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I feel like I'm supposed to go there, and it might be this summer, I think, is my guess, but I don't know.
There's
But that
beautiful
person made
mountains
it.
and everything up here. You can do one of your prayer walks up there.
Well, yeah, I would do them all the way up there. It's my goal. But yeah, I just feel like when at least for me, I think and I believe that when I'm in line with him, it may, sorry, it not may not, it never is what I think it's going to be, but it's always better. It may not be me booking the lead in a movie that I want to do, and it may be renovating someone's farmhouse, but the farmhouse was way better because the conversation that happened, the person I got to bless, and that I get to be blessed by doing it. That's the part that's crazy because it's like, wait, I feel so blessed right now. And I'm not getting monetary anything. Like it costs me. Like I did a renovation. What? Oh, this week. I was like, wait, what week are we in right now? This week I did a renovation for someone, and it was an hour drive each direction for three days. And I built this thing up, and they're like, oh man, are you serious that you're just not going to charge? I'm like, no, you're good. It's like that's it then. I'm like, yeah, have a good one. Just watching their face, they're like, I don't even know how to take this. I'm like, just take it. That's all. That's all you do. If you feel compelled, go bless somebody else with something. I don't know. You've got skills, you've got talents, go love somebody else. Keep it going. Don't just let it end here. That's boring.
I think that's amazing because I think that's how, like, I think that's how the world changes. Blessing
Yeah.
people and doing things for people unexpectedly and, without that expectation.
Yeah.
I think there's too much expectation in the world, and that's what creates so much disease and all of
Yeah.
that. Like, just do things because you can and because you are guided that way.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is, do I want to be known as a renovator? No. But God gave me the skill, so why not use it? And to be honest, like, sorry, I just realized I mentioned that I did a renovation for someone, and I've been purposefully. not posting every time I do that because I don't want it to be like, hey, look at me. I just want to do it. That's it. I don't need other people to be like, because I have some people that are like, man, you should post it more because you can get people to help you and fund for you. Like a guy that I'm not looking down on these people. There's a guy named Jimmy Darts who helps people all the time. And man, he's gotten so big. Like NFL's giving him free tickets to people. CVS is giving him money to give away, and which is cool because more people are getting involved and it's growing. But I'm like, that's not what I feel like God's calling me to do.
Hmm.
And there's another guy who does pressure washing. It's fantastic. He does lawn and pressure washer stuff. He just walks up to people, knocks on their door, and goes, "Hey, can I trim all your trees, cut your grass, and pressure wash your driveway?" They're like, "I don't have any money." He's like, "No, no, no, it's free." I'm like, and he's done it so much that people love it, and he's working full time because people donate. He quit his job, and that's all he does. Free, free yard work. Like, how cool is that?
That's
But I don't
amazing.
like that's what God wants me to do. I think He wants me to do it, and that's it. So, for those who are watching and wondering why doesn't Don have or Donnie have anything posted about this work, I want to see it before I help out. I'm like, you're not gonna. I mean, you might see it here and there when I feel like God's like, yeah, that's okay, post that one. But I'm just want to be obedient. I want to be on that path that He has me on, and I don't want to force it my way
Hmm.
because my pride wants to post it every time and wants to be like, look at the work I did. Hey, come and help me. If I post more, because everybody, well, I don't know if everybody knows, but it's a common thing where if you post more, you make money. But I'm like, I felt like God's like, nope, not you. I'm like, okay, I trust you. I just really broke, but that's fine.
But I think it
But
speaks to the person that you are, though, because you are doing that because you feel guided to it and you're
yeah,
not taking your ego and going, oh, well, I'm gonna, I'm gonna, because I think this is something that I do see a challenge with a lot where people are doing good deeds.
yeah,
But, and I've seen it a lot on Facebook. Like there's a guy who will go and give food to homeless people, but he records everything.
yeah.
And then people are like, why can't you just do it without like
Recording.
like putting the camera in those people's face where you see that because that's uncomfortable for people sometimes who are in that
Yeah,
situation too
yeah,
to be like, oh, okay, well, I'm a, hand out or like so I love that you do share sparingly, but you
yeah,
do it because you feel that pull on your heart. And I think
yeah.
that's beautiful.
Well, the Bible does say do good deeds and let people know about it, but he also says don't let your right hand know what your left hand's doing. So it's like let people know about the good works, but don't brag about it.
Hmm.
Don't be out there. And again, I am not poo-pooing on anyone that's out there doing good deeds and filming it. I get it. Like do your thing. But my call is to not.
Yep.
And if their call is to, then great. God's blessing them and that's awesome. Go do it because that's the other thing. The comparison game is a very dangerous game. We can get caught up in that. Like I could look at Jimmy Darts, like, I mean, depending, again, I don't know his story, but if he's got the NFL, the NBA, like they give him tickets all the time. Like his life is traveling and giving stuff away, and he's just put out a game. He could, from the public eye, he looks like he's making millions of dollars, but I don't think he is. I
Hmm.
think he literally gives away every penny because from what I understand, outside of the gifts that people give him to give to other people, his life is pretty normal.
Yep.
And again, I don't know, but one could take advantage of that situation. He could pull in millions like some of these influencers like the Mr. Beast guy who literally blows up Lamborghinis or something and makes millions of dollars. I'm like, what? I don't get
Yeah.
it. It's after my era. I just watched that. I'm like, what? You don't want to drive that car? That seems weird.
Wasteful.
Yeah, it's like you could sell that car and give it to the homeless, like a lot of homeless. It's a $2 million car. It just blew up, but whatever. Eh,
Oh, well, I want to be mindful because I know I've had you on here for a little while and I appreciate you so much for coming on.
no
Is there
worries.
anything that you would love to share with anyone? How can they find you?
Oh
And
yeah.
what do you got going on with you right now?
Oh, that's a lot. You can find me on Instagram at Donny Mac Country. You can go to my website, donnymac.com. That's pretty much all I have, to be honest. I have a YouTube, but I can't remember what it is. I think it's Donny Mac something.
I'll put the notes in there.
Donnnymac. Yeah, and then what I want people to know is if you believe in Jesus or not. I mean, I would like you to because I think it's like a restaurant. If you find a good restaurant, you want to tell everybody to go there to experience it. I've experienced something amazing in Christ, and I would love for you to experience the same thing. But whether you believe in him or not, he said the truth will set you free. And I just if you don't believe in Christ, and if you do believe in Christ, you should be trying to live this way. If you don't believe in Christ, forget it. Well, don't forget about Jesus, but take the truth will set you free statement and challenge it and try it. Try to be honest with yourself, with others, with your body language, with your words, with the masks you're wearing or not wearing, with the image you're trying to portray. Shut it all down. Find the truth. Share that and be honest with how that feels and how that changes your life, whether it's positive or negative, and see if the truth truly does set you free because it set me free. And I want you to experience the same.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful.